job market Mark Anthony Dyson talks about on his podcast.
Yes. This isn't just about scarce jobs. It's about completely fake postings, fake employers, fake recruiters, even fake advice.
It sounds like a minefield.
It can be. Dyson really stresses vigilance. Job seekers have to verify everything, research the company Glassdoor, Reddit, wherever, be super skeptical of unsolicited offers, check email addresses, websites.
Wow, it adds a whole other layer of stress, doesn't it?
It really does. Coaches, you need to equip your clients to spot these scams. Critical thinking is key here.
Thank you very much for joining me on the Job Scam Report. This is Mark Anthony Dyson, your host, and I don't usually do celebrations real big, but a couple of things. One is I've done more than 50 episodes of this podcast, which is a fantastic thing. A lot of people don't make it that far, but I have. But the other thing I want to celebrate too is that this week makes year number 2 of the Job Scam Report, as far as the articles, the videos, the podcasts, and whatever content I've been able to offer. Some of you have seen me in action. I've put it right here when I present it to other groups. Other of you have seen me do conversations and have LinkedIn Lives on LinkedIn and have watched a LinkedIn post, all of that. I just want to thank you all for following me this journey, which officially started 2024. What I didn't realize, probably more so until lately, it really started in 2022, the spring of 2022. And at that time, I was noticing that there was a shift. And for those of you who don't know, I've been writing about job search and careers for the last 15 years. So I've been watching the space pretty intently and closely. And I've been able to gather a lot of data, not so much numbers, although numbers at times they have been published through me, and I've been able to talk about that on different platforms and mediums. I've gone to colleges, and I don't want to make it sound like I've been on tour or anything, but I've been to different places, been on a lot of podcasts. I've been quoted in a lot of journals over the years, a lot of publications, including my own platform on the Voice of Job Seekers. That still stands, that's still going, and I still talk about job search over there. But over here on the Job Scam Report platform on Substack, I've been focusing in on job scams. And I'm not willing to let that go just yet. But these 2 years have brought me a lot of partnerships, a lot of great relationships, but mostly intel to inform the world, so to speak, that job scams keep surging. It's not going away. The activity, there's too much technology right now to use to make it easier for scammers. There's so much of a lack of trust in the job market that people are looking for that one voice that could change everything, which there lies part of the problem that I've dissected in all the articles and things that I've written, which has been by way, including the podcasts and articles, videos, about 150 pieces of content just on the platform alone, not including what I've shared on LinkedIn, what I've shared on YouTube. So I've had plenty of opportunities to kind of spread that word, and there's so much more to go. But I did want to bring this particular episode to talk about where it all started. And you could probably get an idea when you listen to the episode. It's with Marie Zimenoff. Now, to give you some background, Marie had a podcast called The Career Confidant on the Voice of America Network, which it was at the time a national network that had all different types of radio shows and podcasts on its network. It no longer exists, but the interview is still out there. And I fortunately was able to get it and download it and get to the part where I talk about job scams for the very first time on a podcast through this particular podcast on a national platform, which is kind of cool. And I was able to talk about, I used the word job fishing at that particular time, thinking that it had an expiration date at some point, that these people are going to get caught. But it's much more complex than that. And I kind of knew at the time through my other platform that job scams before already come around, and they would get hot and then they cool off. Not this time that I've noticed. This time I've noticed that there's a continuous surge in job scams, and it's looking a lot different. They're looking a little more real than they ever had because the technology allows us to make them real. Each person has access to that same technology. It's just the intent is entirely different per person. So I just want to be sure that I shared this with you as a way to celebrate this particular journey. Not a celebration where there's balloons, but just an acknowledgement that this fight is really just beginning, I think. I could be wrong, but I think this fight is just beginning. And I think I'm at the genesis of it. I'm not the only one, mind you. Of course, I've got my co-hosts, and you guys have heard Ashley Price Horton, Russell Irby, Jay Jones. Jay Jones, I got with it first. We both probably started about the same time. So I just wanted to give them a shout out too, because they're part of it, and you can follow their posts as they talk about it, especially Jay and Russell, who talk about it almost every day. If not in the comments, they have posts on LinkedIn. Jay has a Substack on his own. I think Ashley's going to come to Substack. I hope Russell makes him a Substack, so we all be on Substack. I think it's a great platform. But I definitely want you guys to continue to follow this. I know there are a lot of people who did unsubscribe, and that's cool. I expect that. But a lot of people who have subscribed since I started as well. So I can't complain. I'm grateful to be able to have people to be able to listen and ask me questions about it. And it's been a great journey. I want to continue it, but I want to, for entertainment purposes, this first episode where I talk about job scams on anybody's platform. So I hope this would be something that you guys can use. So I look forward to giving you more content and for us to continue this journey together. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up at the Job Scam Report on Substack through comments. You can hit me up on LinkedIn under Mark Anthony Dyson, and really all the platforms you can find me under my name. So here it is, The Career Confidant, the episode I was on June 27th, 2022.
Now, back to The Career Confidant.
Welcome back to the Career Confidant. Today we're talking with Mark Anthony Dyson, voice of job seekers, about some newer terms that are out in the job seeking world and how they might apply to you in your job search. So Mark, we were just talking about boomerang employees and people that have left but might be thinking about going back. And now we're going to transition into talking about job phishing. So job phishing is a term that has come out more recently and applies to something negative. But it's a great topic for people to understand. So what is job phishing?
Well, people think of job phishing like catfishing, but with jobs. They're scammers who actually ultimately want your private data. So what they do, they become much more sophisticated, and they've become much more savvier these days than, let's say, about 7 or 8 years ago, where they would prey upon the older people or people who had been out of a job for a long period of time, and they were able to lure them with money. These particular scammers now are a little bit more sophisticated. They're able to set up a fake company, even online, to even make it look like, let's say, LinkedIn, which that actually happened, where someone set up a fake company under LinkedIn, had a LinkedIn page. Now, there are some signs that we can get into how you can tell if something might be a little fishy, so to speak. But all in all, I think people have to understand that it's very easy these days to set up a scam and to have a network of scammers, and they get a certain population or certain types of people to fall into those scams.
Yeah, this is happening more and more. How
Yes.
does how do these people scam their victims?
They first convince them that the company is real and that the job is real. Of course, they do that mostly by setting up a job and a company. And it could even be a company that it seems like a real company, but it isn't. It's fake, and they have fake jobs. It could be a company that sets up as a company that already exists. Let's say LinkedIn, that's happened. Or they could set themselves up Microsoft. Because a lot of these companies, large companies, have smaller entities, it's not that hard to set it up as a new division, as a new job, and you should apply for it and put it out there where people can see it. Now, they could even put a fake job ad on any of the platforms, and people actually fall for it and they apply for it. So when people go into these situations, they go through the process just like if it was a job interview. It's not that hard to fake it. In some cases, a job interview, they may do it with 2 or 3 people, or they may do it with one person, and they may even tell the person in that one call that we want to hire you right away. And what's actually happened is that people have gotten job fished so much that or so deeply and so convincingly that they give their 2-week notice and they've left jobs to actually join this fake company. Like I said, it's very interesting how people are able to set up these fake companies and not get caught right away. But it's interesting after the fact when people have done investigations, the company's nowhere to be found.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating, isn't it? That a job seeker is going to see the job. It looks real. You think, oh my goodness, I've got a fish, right? I've got someone interested, and then it evaporates.
Yes, it's the illusion of these ideal jobs, which really, in the career space, we say if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and you need to do the deep work. Unfortunately, a lot of job seekers make themselves vulnerable because they don't do the deep work. They just take it at face value. But it looks like LinkedIn, it looks like Microsoft, or it looks like whatever company. But what it looks like and not doing what you need to do to find out what the position is like or even position exists takes some work. And unfortunately, only a small amount of job seekers overall are willing to do that.
Right. So how do job seekers identify the scam?
Great question. I should preface this by saying that in I said earlier in the past, usually it's a very vulnerable population where with these job fish, people who were job fished were actually high-level performers, and they were in tech, and they were in engineering, and they were in the healthcare field, and they were job fished because this thing looked so close to the real thing that this person made the company masquerade in something so real that it's hard to tell from the outside. But if you're going to go deep, there are several things you should do, and some of the things that we talked about and you've talked about on your podcast ad nauseum, such as networking within a company, looking at a company page, checking out company, even going as far as checking out to see if this company has a real incorporation or LLC or a real business entity of some sort. Then you should be looking at names and looking at names of employees to see if you're looking at going to their profiles. Look at their photos. Some photos are fake. They're stock photos from wherever they come from. The avatars are not real. And even when you dig a little bit deeper and looking for employee pages, if everybody looks like a stock photo gallery, then you can be really suspicious and start asking more questions. You should research the person on LinkedIn to see if they have a real background that's somewhat verifiable. See if you have connections. See what those connections know about that company or about that person. You may have to do some work, but definitely you should be more concerned that, wow, this thing is really up my alley. How did I get a hold of this when I haven't heard from someone in months? You should be skeptical always and be very discerning about who's contacting you and why. Some people have experienced it through their LinkedIn email. Other people have gotten email and random, and when they've gone in to check the emails, there's been misspellings, there have been misinformation, there's wrong establishment dates of companies that are real. There's all kinds of things that have happened in the recent months. And actually, it's been happening about the past couple of years, but I think it's kicking upward that this is happening more. But job seekers just need to be doing their due diligence and looking at what they can do. I wrote an article about job phishing. They can find it's called Job Phishing 10 Ways to Avoid a Scam. It's on lynda.com. And you Google those, job phishing, 10 ways to avoid a scam, you should be able to find it. And there's a bunch of articles and there's other references that I make as well within the article.
Excellent. Yes, very nice. And it just reminds me of when it sounds too good to be true, it is. And I'm seeing a lot right now for positions promoted as work from home or remote. That's where I'm seeing a huge amount of scams come up because everybody wants that. And they're just so obvious. No training needed, no skills required. Like, that's just not a job, right? So when people are
right.
When it sounds to be too good to be true, it is. When people are really looking for something and it's right on trend, that's often also a red flag. Yeah.
Yes. And I think, too, just to insert a little something, too, real companies have to be very discerning about what they put out there as far as a job description, because a lot of companies don't write job descriptions really well. In fact, there have been reports, and I've even heard through my network, that people have gone to jobs thinking it was one thing because of the job description, but it ends up being something else. So that's a form of job phishing, too, though the company's intent isn't to get private data. They're trying to hire, but they end up someone feels like they're job fish because that description that they put out into the world isn't what the job actually is when they land the job and get in there and get started. So I think all of that is kind of a double warning. Is one, you should look at job descriptions of everybody, even if it's legit. But also, I think companies need to even stand out by writing relevant and true job descriptions to hire and to lure talent.
Yeah, because sometimes the job descriptions are not accurate, and maybe not intentionally, but also seeing companies post jobs that include the keyword remote, so they show up in searches, but then they're not actually remote. Maybe it says partially remote, or I don't know. I've seen some things where people are making the job description show up in search, even though it's not really accurate.
Yes, it's a lot. And job seekers just need to be able to do that extra work now. No longer can you sit by and be passive, even when you get a possible interview and you've got interviews. You should always keep the search up and always be looking for validation of what they're saying about the position is actually correct.
Right. Yeah, I got to do your research, see what the realities are, and always be leery of those things that sound too good to be true. So, Mark, this has been so informative. Yeah. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn as a first spot. I believe a lot of folks that listen to you are on LinkedIn because of how you talk about LinkedIn. But they can also go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com They can sign up for the ebook that's there. It's free. Has 125 pages of these at this particular point. It's on the modern job search and just giving tips that would be very helpful.
Excellent. So, Mark Anthony Dyson, so glad that you were able to join us and share this information. We're going to say goodbye to Mark, and we will be back here on the Career Confidant to talk about a few more trending topics. Thank you again, Mark, and we will be right back here on the Career Confidant.
Great. Thank you, Marie.